The racing year is 1953, and in Grand Prix there's a fierce struggle between two Italian teams, Ferrari and Maserati. A new driver on the scene, England's Mike Hawthorn, joining Alberto Ascari and Nino Farina at Ferrari. After recovering from his serious accident, Juan Manuel Fangio is back at Maserati.
Fangio using all his skill to make up for his lack of intimate knowledge of the roads.
Sports car racing was set for a classic year. The Mille Miglia and Le Mans part of a new sports car world championship. Alberto Ascari won the Argentinian Grand Prix, but tragedy struck when Nino Farina lost control and drove into the crowd, killing 7 people. First round of the World Sports Car Championship was the sabring 12-hour race in Florida. Phil Walters and John Fitch in the Cunningham C4R took the win ahead of Reg Parnell and George Apocassis in the Aston Martin DB3. The second round was the Mille Miglia. The cars file into Piazza della Vittoria, Brescia. Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, Lancia and Maserati, all ready for the dash down the Adriatic coast, across the Apennines to Rome and back across the Futa Pass to Brescia.
3:40. Time for Venezian to start in his Oscar. By tradition, Castagneto wears the bowler hat he wore to start the first Mille Miglia in 1927. In his Jaguar. The team manager of Mercedes, Neubauer, is here just to watch. Beyond Aquila, they climb up to the Sella di Corna. Ravenna, and here's Gianino Marzotto. Broken every record with an average speed of well over 100 miles an hour for the first 180 miles. Rossolini is going steadily, although Tom Cole is about to pass him. He's about 15 minutes behind the leaders. "60 miles on, Aquila, and the Oscars lead in the 1100 sports car. There's 20 minutes between Venezian's leading Oscar and the Fiat Armini of Brandy. And as Fangio pulls up to the Alfa pits to refuel, another Alfa arrives. Kling is fastest of all by 40 seconds. Alfas are first and second at Rome. All the way, the crowds line the road as we try to steady our camera against the bumps. And here's a lorry. And that's George Apocassis. The Alfa Romeo Fangio leads. Kling is out and Fangio has taken his place. The fastest car still in the race has now nearly caught up with the Ferrari of Paolo Marzotto, which left Brescia 19 minutes before the Alfa and is now less than 2 minutes ahead. Paolo Marzotto is now up in third place with his Ferrari. The Alfa Romeo is here. Fangio using all his skill to make up for his lack of intimate knowledge of the roads. Fangio is trying hard, but he won't know if he's going fast enough to hold his 4-minute lead until he arrives at Siena Control. Beyond Florence is the Futa Pass over the Apennines, the last great obstacle before Bologna. And close behind the Lancia comes the Ferrari. The last chance for Gianino Marzotto to use his knowledge of the mountains to gain those 2 vital minutes. Fangio also knows there's not a second to spare if the Alfa is to stay in first place. Bologna, and the Ferrari has broken the record for crossing the Futa, a record that has stood since Biondetti made it in 1938. And it's the Alfa. Fangio's had trouble with the steering and has now dropped 3 minutes behind the Ferrari.
Crossing the Futa, the steering of Fangio's Disco Volante began to fail. A damaged track rod meant he only had steering to one front wheel.
And here comes Gianino Marzotto to win the 20th Mille Miglia.
Gianino Marzotto won his second Mille Miglia, while Fangio's heroic performance demonstrated his skill. A much shorter event was the 25-lap production sports car race at Silverstone. Mike Hawthorn was now a fully fledged member of the Ferrari team and had a 340mm Barchetta with its powerful 4.5-litre V12. Jaguar's Sterling Moss had an accident in practice and was severely bruised. Moss got away first, but was soon to lose the lead. Hawthorn rushed past the pits with a lead over the Aston Martins, and the Jaguars outclassed on home ground. It was the private Écurie Écosse Jaguars rather than the works cars battling with the Aston Martins. Tom Cole's private Ferrari and Peter Walker with the leading factory C-Type. Reg Parnell in the Aston and Sterling Moss back in 5th place. The first of the Écurie Écosse cars driven by Ian Stewart and Hawthorn lapping tail-enders. Mike Hawthorn showed everyone the way home at Silverstone. Tom Cole was second and Reg Parnell third in the Aston Martin DB3. Bill Vukovic won the Indianapolis 500, which was also round 2 of the World Drivers' Championship. Fangio continued his association with BRM in non-championship Formula Libre races, on this occasion the Albi Grand Prix. The V16 BRM had missed World Championship glory, but was now competing against the Ferrari 375s. In this two-heat race, Frenchman Louis Rosier, driving his own Tipo 375, was able to outlast the BRMs. Alberto Ascari continued his winning ways in the Dutch Grand Prix with Nino Farina second. Le Mans, and the refueling equipment is calibrated while maintenance work goes on in the pits and around the circuit. 1953 was round 3 of the World Championship. Ferrari, Alfa Romeo, Talbot, Maserati, Gordini, Cunningham, Lancia, Nash Healey, Allard, Jaguar and Aston Martin were all there. The city welcomed spectators with cafes and hotels doing tremendous business. Crowds came in their thousands, preparing to watch from their favorite vantage points. The press tribunes and spectator enclosures were packed. Jaguar's Sterling Moss talks before the start, while Duncan Hamilton and Tony Rolt emerged from the team caravan. A gendarme stands guard. At the head of the lineup is the supercharged Gordini, and next the white Cunninghams. John Fitch makes a quick getaway in the Cunningham C5R. The Lancias and the Jaguars are weaving through the traffic. From the start, it was a tremendous battle between Jaguar and Ferrari. The Ferrari 375mm Coupe of Ascari and Villoresi fought it out with the Jaguars, Moss in number 17 and Tony Rolt in 18. The end of the Mulsanne, and Jaguar's disc brakes showed their superiority. Ferrari had more powerful engines. Moss, Ascari and Rolt the order, but within the first hour Moss's Jaguar had a fuel feed problem. He and Peter Walker rejoined down the order, seemingly out of contention. Tony Rolt and Duncan Hamilton knew the importance of racing at night. Hamilton said, "We realized that the race was won in the dark. Whoever beat the night won the race. When people relax in the dark and say, well, dawn will soon be here, we really pressed on and drove faster." The Cunningham of John Fitch and Phil Walters in the pits for a routine stop. Tyres are changed at the back of the pits. Cushions put in to accommodate Walters, who climbs aboard. The American cars were never quite on the pace, but were usually at the finish. Dawn breaks, and the Jaguar of Tony Rolt and Duncan Hamilton leads. The Ferrari had fallen by the wayside with electrical problems. The C5R goes through, as does Tom Cole, shortly to lose his life when his Ferrari crashes. A fine recovery by Stirling Moss and Peter Walker brings them back to second. The Cunningham Coupe of Charles Moran and John Gordon Bennett. In fourth place, using a different axle ratio, is Peter Whitehead and Ian Stewart in the third of the works Jaguars. There's bracing down the back to strengthen the rear quarters, where the extra petrol tank is located. Work completed, the Cunningham Coupe returns to the race. Disc brakes were in their infancy, and to change pads took around 4 minutes. In such a long race as Le Mans, that delay is easily overcome by the better performance of the discs over drum brakes. The leading Jaguar of Hamilton and Rolt closes on the Cunningham Coupe to lap it once again. The crowds wait for the finish, and it's a Jaguar victory to Tony Rolt and Duncan Hamilton. 3 works Jaguars are in the first 4 places, with the Cunningham C5R of John Fitch and Phil Walters third. Angela Hamilton and Louise Rolt join the celebrations. Duncan Hamilton and Tony Rolt might have been lucky to even compete, because they were almost disqualified in a practice mix-up. Legend has it, they spent the night before the race drowning their sorrows, an unusual way to prepare. A week later, the British Empire Trophy was held on the Isle of Man. Hans Rusch slides his Ferrari around the Douglas circuit on his way to third place. Stirling Moss, in a privately entered C-Type, was fourth. The prototype Aston Martin DB3S was driven by Reg Parnell to victory ahead of Ken Wharton's Fraser Nash. Alberto Ascari won again in Belgium, his 9th Grand Prix victory in succession. The French Grand Prix was back on the high-speed Rams circuit. Froilan Gonzalez started on half-full fuel tanks in his Maserati and led until half-distance. When he pitted, Fangio vied with Mike Hawthorn for the lead. On lap 58, Hawthorn and Fangio were neck and neck, with Ascari and Gonzalez close behind. Lap 59 was the same, and on the last lap, Hawthorn out-accelerated Fangio from Tilloy corner to the finish. Fangio was nearly caught by Gonzalez. It was a breakthrough result for Mike Hawthorn. Ascari, Farina and Villaresi completed the top 6. In the British Grand Prix, Alberto Ascari went into a lead he was never to lose. Fangio and Hawthorn battled until Hawthorn had a lurid spin at Woodcote in front of the grandstand. Ascari won from Fangio, Farina, Gonzalez and a recovering Mike Hawthorn. Nino Farina just avoids being run over in the paddock preparing for the German Grand Prix. Maserati had been weakened by Gonzalez's withdrawal after being injured in a sports car race in Lisbon. Stirling Moss looks over his new Cooper. It had an Alta engine and nitromethane fuel, giving it almost as much power as the Maseratis and Ferraris. First of the British cars to qualify was Roy Salvadori's Connaught. In practice, Ascari had broken the magical 10-minute barrier with a 9-minute 59.8 second lap. Alfred Neubauer watches. Mike Hawthorn was on the front row with Ascari, Fangio and Farina. Despite there being a large entry of German cars like Veritas Meteor, AFM and EMW, the quickest of these was over a minute slower than Ascari. Fangio took the lead, beating Ascari away from the line, but the Ferrari driver was soon in front. This left Fangio and Hawthorn to continue their personal battle, entertaining the crowd with Farina fourth. On lap 5, however, it all changed. Ascari lost a wheel at Tiergarten. He limped around to the pits on 3 wheels and a brake drum. The Italian showed rare temper as the mechanics struggled to fit a new wheel. 4 minutes were lost, which allowed Hawthorn, Fangio, Farina and Villoresi to pass, and he dropped to 9th. Farina was inspired by Ascari's problems, passing Fangio and Hawthorn to lead. Ascari returned after a long delay. Fangio was now second and Hawthorn third. Ascari in the pits once more with an engine problem. Luigi Villoresi was called in and Alberto took over from his friend. Ascari broke the lap record with 9 minutes 56 seconds. But on lap 15, a cloud of blue smoke meant he had to drive the last lap at much reduced speed. After 3 hours, the race was over, with Nino Farina the winner from Fangio and Hawthorn. Farina had been overshadowed by the recent performances of Ascari and Fangio. The German Grand Prix was to be Farina's last World Championship victory. The legendary Tazio Nuvolari, regarded by many as the greatest of all drivers, passed away on August the 11th, aged 60. The next Grand Prix was in Switzerland.
For on the outskirts of Bern is the Bremgarten circuit, and at Bremgarten in August is the Swiss Grand Prix. This year's race was one of the first to reveal the Maserati challenge to the all-conquering Ferraris, and the 6-cylinder 2-liter machines were to be driven by Fangio, Marimont, de Graffenried, Bonetto and Lang, while Giulio Ramponi kept a close eye on the all-important plugs.
A win to Alberto Ascari would secure the World Championship, but Fangio in the new A6 SSG made the better start from pole position.
Fangio makes a wonderful start, but Ascari gets past with Hawthorn and Marimont behind.
After a gearbox problem slowed him down, Fangio took over Bonetto's car.
Ascari's in front with Fangio on his tail. Behind come Mike and Marimont.
pre-war ace Hermann Lang finished 6th for Maserati, his final Grand Prix.
And the 4 Ferraris lead the field. But at 20 laps, Villoresi drops back, and Marimon and Veneto take his place. Mike Hawthorn, who fought a crucial battle with Marimon's Maserati. Ascari, who lost a minute and a half at his pit, but fought back to lead. And Farina, who coolly held his station to 2nd place. And there, another Swiss Grand Prix is won.
Ascari had to work his way back from 4th to win the race, beating Farina and Hawthorn. The 9-hour race at Goodwood wasn't part of the 1953 World Championship, which Ferrari won from Jaguar and Aston Martin. But it was an important event in Britain, and Aston Martin took on Jaguar. The C-types of Stirling Moss and Duncan Hamilton led. With an hour to go, disaster struck for Jaguar when their cars retired with blown engines. Oil surge the culprit. Reg Parnell and Eric Thompson in the Aston Martin DB3S inherited the lead, which they held to the flag. It was now almost 2 years since Fangio had won a World Championship race, and his last chance in 1953 was the Italian Grand Prix. Fangio's car had a terrible vibration in practice, and he complained to chief mechanic Bertocchi, who told him, "Don't worry, tomorrow, no vibration." The race was a typical Monza slipstreaming battle, the lead changing between the Ferraris of Ascari and Farina and the Maseratis of Fangio and new Argentinian driver Onofre Marimon. On the last lap, exiting the Parabolica, Ascari spun, causing chaos. Farina went onto the grass to avoid him into the path of Marimon. With Fangio's ability to thread his way through danger, he scored the win by a second from Farina and a very surprised Luigi Villoresi. After the race, Fangio's teammate Bonetto said that his car had vibrated so much he thought that his teeth had fallen out and he couldn't understand it. Fangio, however, knew that his car had been secretly swapped for Bonetto's. Although Alberto Ascari didn't finish the Italian Grand Prix, he did win the Drivers' World Championship for the 2nd time. He was the undisputed king of Grand Prix racing in 1952 to 53 with the superb Ferrari Tipo 500. To end the season on the track, Fangio was back in the BRM at Goodwood in the Daily Graphic Trophy, racing against Mike Hawthorn in the Thinwell Special. And it was the modified Ferrari which came out on top. A new era beckoned in 1954 with a new Grand Prix formula and some spectacular cars ready to emerge. In November, Fangio drove a Lancia D24 sports car to victory in the 4th Carrera Panamericana in Mexico. But the victory lost its meaning when his close friend Felice Bonetto was killed when his car left the road. A sad way to end the racing year.